Best Music Coach. My name is Dan, and today we're going to be discussing what speed Megalovania from the popular game Undertale actually is. Let's check it out. So, there's been a lot of conjecture on the internet about whether this song is actually 120 beats per minute or 240. So when we're talking about speed, we're going to be talking in terms of BPM. Now, BPM means beats per minute. And when we talk about speed, we oftentimes use the word tempo. Tempo. This means time in Italian, but we use it in English to describe the speed of a piece of music. So one of the arguments is that Megalovania is actually at 120 beats per minute. However, this is not correct. It is actually at 240 beats per minute, and I am going to show you why and how, explaining with a little bit of music theory, but I'll keep it simple so even you guys who aren't musicians and who have not studied music theory will be able to understand along the way, and walk you through some of the music theory using skills and pages from my music theory book. Plug for that in the description below, the best music theory book for beginners. You can check it out on Amazon. Anyway, let's get back to the lesson. So, what we need to start off with is to understand a measure. So within a measure, we're going to have, in this case, 4 beats because the time signature is 4/4. We're not going to get into how time signatures work for today. We're just going to understand that there's going to be 4 counts in every measure, and for a measure, we can just understand that we're going to be saying 1, 2, 3, 4 over and over again, and this is how we're going to determine the speed of Megalovania. Now, let's take a quick listen to Megalovania, just a couple seconds of it, and really see what it sounds like so I can start pointing out to you how we know it's 240, not 120. Here we go. So the key instrument here is actually the drums. That's what's telling us how fast it is. Now, the reason why the drums tell us how fast this is going is because of this thing called strong beats and weak beats, or metric hierarchy. Now, to talk about what metric hierarchy is, let's take a quick look at a page from my book. Every measure of most time signatures, there are stronger and weaker beats. This is part of what gives music life. If all beats were equally strong, they would not be beats, they would be a pulse, and alternating strong and weak beats gives music momentum and movement. So why are some beats strong and some beats weak? Well, stronger and weaker beats change how notes that align with the beat are stressed when performed. This means that together, as a European Western music culture, we've all agreed that certain beats get more emphasis than others. Each time signature has its own series of stronger and weaker beats. Other music cultures, like that of India and Bali, have different music rules and cultures. So we can see strong and weak beats. Use a color system below. Strongest are green, strong are yellow, weak is orange, weakest is red. Now we can see that the strong and weak beat colors for 4/4 go strongest, weak, strong, weakest. So we can see here that there's essentially 2 parts of the drum that we really need to pay attention to. Number 1 is the kick, and number 2 is the snare. Kick sounds like this. Snare sounds like this. Now let's take a look at the actual notation of what this looks like. We can see that there's 4 beats in 4/4. Remember, said we're going to count to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, beat 1, when we say 1, that's the strongest beat. Beat 2, oh, that's a weak beat. Beat 3, that's a strong beat. Beat 4, that's the weakest beat. Now we know beats 1 and 3 are typically going to have a kick on them, and beats 2 and 4 are typically going to have a snare drum on them. That sounds like this. Now the reason for the kick being on 1 and 3 and the snare being on 2 and 4, this has a lot to do with our cultural perception of the metric hierarchy of beats and which beats should be strong, which beats should be weak, and that is a conversation for another time. So for now, let's just focus that we know that a kick drum is always going to happen on beats 1 and 3 most of the time, and a snare drum is going to happen on 2 and 4 most of the time. In this case, Megalovania, it's easy. Kick is happening on 1 and 3, snare is happening on 2 and 4. Let's take another listen to Megalovania, and this time I'm going to put my headphones on. I'm actually going to point out to you where the kick and snare are actually happening. So let's take a quick listen here. Let's do this. Snare, 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 kick, 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 snare, 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 kick, snare. Woo! Yeah, so that's moving pretty fast. So basically what we can understand is that it's going kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. Okay, now, I've got this metronome set to 240 beats per minute. BPM, beats per minute. This basically just means how many times we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4 every minute. So let's take a listen. This is the speed of Megalovania because as you could hear before, I was going kick, snare, 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 kick, snare. And we know that there's 4 beats in every measure, and we know that beats 1 and 3 get the kick, snare happens on 2 and 4, and we know if the kick is happening that fast and the snare is happening that fast, it must be 240. So for example, I'm going to slow this down to 120, and I'm going to say kick, snare at the same speed that I just did. Here's the metronome at 120 beats per minute. Now, if we say kick, snare at the same speed that we did just before, it's going to sound like this. Kick, snare, 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 kick, snare. And what's happening, you can hear that the word kick is lining up with the click. Listen. Kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, 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 snare, kick, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. No, the snare also needs to have a click of its own. It can't just be the kick. So let's speed it back up to 240. Hear it again. Here's the metronome again at 240. Kick, snare, 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 kick, snare. To further prove my point, I am now going to play the metronome along with the recording of Megalovania so you can hear how it all lines up and comes together. Here we go. Kick, snare, 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 kick, 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 snare, 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 kick, 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 snare. So, you can hear that clearly Megalovania has to be at 240 beats per minute. There is no way it is at 120. Now, let's talk about this a little bit because it is interesting. So 120 is the speed that a lot of rock happens at, and a lot of high energy rock at that. Not just like, your rock ballads, but your sort of your Bon Jovi, your Aerosmith. That happens at 120. So we have a cultural idea that a high-energy rock song, which Megalovania kind of is, it's a high-energy rock song. It's got the distorted guitar in there, these crazy solos going on. We have this idea that it should be at 120 because we've had a lot of high-energy rock songs at 120. However, it is not. It is most definitely at 240. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video and what you would like me to break down next. What mystery you would like me to solve and what code you would like me to crack. All right, I will see you guys next time.